Hey, Samantha and Zaire, can I use your annotated bibliographies of examples?
Sure.
Thank you. Zaire, let me see. Maybe you don't have sound. So Zaire, I just asked you, I'm gonna put it, oh, yep, you wrote back in the chat. Gotcha. Okay, so. Okay, 1 more minute till class begins. Boop.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, I had to switch the way. It was complicated. Okay, I'm fine.
Okay, thanks. I got your chat. So, all right, let's get started with the fast write. So the question is kind of heated, loaded question, but it's a one that it's a good question. Do you think Americans of European descent, white people, are treated better than Americans with African descent, Black people? So the only thing I would add is why or why not. And so the reason that it's a good question, it's because it's really clear. So we know that we're talking about Americans. The terms have been fully defined. So some people might prefer to be called people of European descent, not white. Some people might prefer to be called people of African descent, not Black, but to make it really clear, it's all there. And we know we're talking about America, because it's also in the question. So it's a nice example of a concise, to the point question. People probably are going to have a lot to say about this question. And it's probably a question that makes many people uncomfortable. So I like the question. So go ahead and get started on that question. And I look forward to hearing back from everybody. Okay, so maybe a couple more minutes on this. I see that some people are just arriving now. So let's give it till maybe 9:44. So if you just got to class, please address the question. If you are done writing on the question, look at the chat. And everyone who can put their camera on, please do. Okay, so it's 9:44 and I want to see, so I like the question also because it's something I study. So I study representations of race. And so of course I like this question. It's what I'm interested in. And it's something I actually think that everybody who's American probably has something to say about it, but actually doesn't really know that much about it. So do not Google this. Just tell me what, off the top of your head, what do you think the percentage of African Americans are in the United States? Okay, I'm glad that nobody's jumping in on that because I didn't think, does anyone know? What
Um,
percentage?
If I could take a guess, I'd say it'd be
Yes.
like around like 30 or 40%. That's just a guess. I don't know
So
for
that's-
sure.
I'm thinking like 37.
So Mia and Zaire, in Louisiana, the percentage is around 32, 33%. Okay, so in Louisiana, you're right, but in the United States, no, 13%. Does anybody know the percentage of Latin American people? So when I say Latin American, I mean people of Latin American descent, be them, they could be Brazilian, they could be Mexican, they could be Honduran, they could be El Salvadoran, they could be Guatemalan. All of those are Latin American people. So do you know what percentage they are in the United States?
Like 60, 64.
30.
Okay, so 30, so notice, so it's about 20%. And so you're closer on you were closer to the Latin American than I expected. I expected people to say, I don't know, 5-6%. So who are there more of? Latin American people or African American people? Clearly. Latin American. So nonetheless, we think of America, if you think of like who is the racial tension between, where is it, like where is there more of a racially charged relationship? Would you think whites and Latin American people or white people and African American people? Well, why do you think that the question got asked about African descended people when there are more Latin American descended people. Yes, so somebody put in the chat, yes, that the tension, I mean, there's a lot of racial tension in America generally, but the major tension is black, white. Okay. 75% for white people, yeah. So who wants to read? So why does this question make us uncomfortable?
Because it's happening like today. It's like a
Well,
big topic in today's like
it's a
news.
big topic in today's, but is there, has treatment always been fair and equal between the races in the United States? So right now, there's a lot of attention being brought to the question. So right this minute, this is a question that is on the forefront. However, if you look historically, it was also on the forefront in the 1960s, in the 1950s, also during the Civil War, the 1860s, 70s, 80s, 90s. There was this bad period from about 1900 to 1950. It was still on some people's minds, but it's been a topic of American history for as long as America's existed. Okay, so I'm gonna press you guys and make somebody read their thoughts on it if I don't get any volunteers, which I'm expecting that not everyone's dying to raise their hand.
I mean, I'll share mine.
Okay, Brianna, I'd love to hear yours.
Okay, mine's off of a personal experience at a job I used to work at. So I said, in a lot of scenarios, white people are treated better than black people. And as a white person, I can realize this because the job that I used to work at was a majority of white people. And a lot of times when a black person would come through our drive-through, the other girls would say really racial slurs and like be really rude for no reason. And like, I know that when I go through a drive-through, I don't get harassed and people don't treat me like that because I am white. And yeah, I just noticed that. So
Yeah, okay, thank you for your personal experience and for
You're welcome.
sharing that. Did anybody else raise their hand to volunteer? Okay, Bronson.
Okay, so for my question, in which I came up with the answer, except that I wasn't there for very long. But for my own question, I think my answer would be that but for my question, I think my answer would be that. But to answer my own question, I think my answer would be that that whi- that that white people, that Americans that are white people are treated better than Americans that are black people because 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 it all can depend on their behavior, because it all just depends on their behavior, unless if unless if unless if white people start getting treated like black people, then it would be different. But I think white people are treated better than black people because of their behavior, of the way they do stuff, and their financial way. I'm sorry, man. Their income, their 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 income on housing, you know, their income on housing and their income on housing and and the Montgomery bus boycott that they had a long time ago. It's also based off of that. So I guess so whites are treated very than blacks because of their behavior, their household income, and and the and the way they deal with stuff. Like and the ways that they do stuff. With the law. With the law. With the law, and with education and all that.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off there. So we have a lot of things that you brought up, which are, if you were to argue this, you could talk about for sure, like finances. So creating a legacy of inheriting houses and money to children, it's much more prevalent in white America to be able to leave your family money. So like Bronson said, and this is something you can just look up, and it's just data. Also, you know, there's like, he's for you guys, yes, Montgomery bus boycott is a long time ago, but in my mind, it's only a few years before I was born. So you could say old Dr. White is just old, but it's, you know, almost in my lifetime, there was segregation in the country, almost within my lifetime. Did anybody else want to say anything before we move on? No? I said I was going to press you.
No, ma'am, but thank you,
Okay.
folks.
I'm going to
No,
just
ma'am,
pick
but thank
one
you,
other
folks.
person. So I'm going to look, I usually look at the first
No,
person
ma'am,
I
but
see.
thank you, folks.
You're welcome. I usually pick the first one and pick the last name I see. So that'd be Shamira. Did you have time to read the question and write about it?
I read it, but I didn't write about it. But like, I mean, I guess I agree with I think it was Brianna with what she said. Like, yeah, white people are treated better than black people, like just because they white, pretty much.
Do you have any way to back that up with evidence? Like, so Brianna gave a personal story, which is, you know, that's not going to win you a case in court. That's not going to win you a good grade in a research paper. Although you could tell a little personal story in a research paper if you show the data. But what is something that you can show that's evidence that you can give to convince people of that? So like Brianna's persuasive. She says, I've observed this in my life. So if we go back to like being convincing, being believable, one of the things that makes you somewhat believable is to say, I live this. It's like a testimony. Now, does that stand up in court? No, but it helps us understand her point. Bronson had some history, which also, you know, it's fact. So do you have some kind of evidence to support the claim that white people are treated better than black people in America? I'll get to you. I see you, Zaire.
I mean, I would have to think, like.
Okay, Zaire, what you got?
I was gonna say there was like a study like a few years ago. Well, it was actually like a couple of years ago, but it was like there was a white man and then a black guy, and they were like walking on opposite sides of the street, and they had like pedestrians just like, you know, walk down with them, and it was like noted that like most like white women like held their purse tighter around like the black guy other than the white guy. So you can use that, and then you can also use how like the school shooter, how he was. Oh, go ahead. How he was taken out. No, you're fine.
What school shooter?
I think it was the one, that white dude with the bowl cut.
Oh, there's so many school shooters that are like that white guy. I don't know if there's
I
been a
think it was
mass school shooting
Parkland.
with a black guy, which isn't to say that I think that white people are more likely to do school shootings.
Oh
But
no, I'm just gonna
remember,
compare that to like a black dude like stealing something minor, but in the
Oh, right,
scenario,
right,
like
right.
he would die and like he was escorted out peacefully.
I
So was
got you. Yeah. So that's a good example, like, you know, a peaceful escort out of somebody who just shot up a school versus somebody who gives counterfeit money and he ends up dead. That was the Flynn case. So Mia, did you want to say something?
So I understand what Zaire is saying, but at the end of the day, like, anyone can be bad. We live in a free country where the law is equal to anyone. Like, you can be Hispanic, you can be African American, you can be white, you can be whatever you want to be. I believe that there is still racism in the world. Like how she said, like the white man got escorted out, the school shooter got escorted out peacefully, and the black man died. There is still racism, but I mean, there's racism between every race. There's people. I've had somebody who didn't like me. I dated a guy, and his uncle didn't like me because I was white. So, I mean, he didn't like his black nephew dating a white girl. So, I mean, I feel like it's not the bigger thing. Like, I feel like, yes, there are probably more people who are more racist toward African Americans, but I've seen it too. Like, anyone can be racist. And I feel like how you raise your kids, how they'll end up to be. And
so in the end, it's true that like if you look at world history, the Holocaust, that was white people exterminating white people, right? Because Jews are basically white people, Germans are basically white people. And so it's true. But what I want to talk about later, not this minute, because I actually do want to go on to the annotated bibs and your research topics, is systemic racism, when there's a system that is racist. So this is a question that's huge. This would not be researchable in a research paper because it's just too big. Like Zaire said, I could cite a study. There's millions of studies on this. So we're going to move on from this, and we are going to talk about quickly your annotated bibliographies. And then, so I'm going to show you two that were just well done. And that would be, yeah, there were two that were just kind of like, they hit all the, of course now it doesn't want to show up. So Samantha's was really good. And so I don't know what RTF is, guys, but sometimes it shows up and sometimes it doesn't show up. I saw it at home, so I knew it was really good, and I don't know why it's doing this. If you can upload things as PDFs, they will always show up. I'm just going to refresh it to see if it'll come up. Here it goes. There we go. Okay, what is RTF.RTF?
I think that's the way, I have a MacBook. I think that's the way it saves it to my desktop instead of a PDF.
Yeah,
I mean, I
you can
could try to
remember
do it
to
as a
do
PDF.
PDF. You're not the only person, Samantha, so don't feel bad. Somebody else had an RTF that I could not get to upload. Okay, so here's like what's good about hers. Immediately I see that it is alphabetized. She has, so this is confusing when you're a freshman. You don't understand like what the difference is with the journal or the book title or the title of a article. And so I get that lots of you kind of didn't do this correctly, but I would like you to try to do it correctly. So her first entry is not a peer-reviewed source, but that's okay because she only needs two. And so all of that was good. And she's also, as you can see, she did 6 pages. And so this one is a peer-reviewed source. And how do I know that? Because I can look at the URL. Also, coincidentally, it was easy for me to see alphabetized because the first one was A, the next one was B. How perfect is that? She uses the et al, which is to say that there are multiple authors. She put the quotation marks around the article title, which is the way you're supposed to do it. There's the title of the journal, The Future of Children, the year is published, etc. So she's just very good at this, and we'll just say it's probably because Samantha went to a good high school. So again, ABC, which is just a coincidence, but like it makes me happy because I was like easy to follow. So this is a different article about the foster care system from the same journal. That's fine. You can use 2 different articles from the same journal. And then we have another one that like I couldn't tell looking at it right off the top. Very Well Family does not sound like a peer-reviewed source, but it doesn't matter because she's already got 2. So so she was good. And then the other one was Zaire's. So again, notice how Zaire's, it's just, you know, there it is. I can see there's the name of the journal. There's the name of the article. She was alphabetical, so it wasn't as easy with Zaire's to say it was alphabetical, but I had to look, and sure enough, LN alphabetical. And this would not be peer reviewed, but that's okay because she only needs 2 peer reviewed sources. And then this one is the British Medical Journal, so that's good. And so it goes, they're very good. Okay, so if you have any tips on how you're producing those nice bibliographical entries, Samantha and Zaire, are you using EasyBib? Are you just going through the book that is on Moodle? Are you looking in the OWL website?
I put mine in the OWL website, but some of the peer-reviewed ones, it would not cite it, so I had to do it myself.
Yeah, which is just, that's the way it works. So the EasyBibs or whatever you're using, they'll work sometimes, but you have to you have to go back and check them. Sometimes you have to enter the information manually. You have to understand what your source is and that the source is italicized. The source, looking at Zaires here, the source is not China's one policy, it's gender and society. So when I say a source, this is what I'm talking about, the name of the journal. And how do I know it's a journal? Because it's volume 2, number 2 of that journal, Gender and Society. Do you have any pro tips, Zaire, to?
So when you're using like a academic journal and you use like academic what is it? Academic Search Complete and then JSTOR, you literally like it literally says like cite this item and it gives you the MLA like APA formatting.
Yep.
And then you can also like go back and check it by using like Purdue OWL and stuff like that.
So I'll show you what she means by that. So it does literally give you the citation on there. And I think I briefly mentioned this, but I also don't want people to get too dependent on this because not everything always will be in your academic source complete because you're using sources that are not going to be found in this. And so you cannot instantly make the citations. So what do I mean? I'm going to do something that is for my research, I'm looking for a play that is called, so you can see like Dr. White has to look things up too. And I bet I'm not going to find anything so I'm going to look for a play that's in French and it's from the 1831. It's about Louisiana. And so I'm looking in French and I'm going to see if anything comes up. And my guess is that things will come up. Oh, there it is. Cool. So Robin's happy here because she just found the source that she needs. And so here it is. So remember when I say like MLA is just one, it's not even the one I use. I use Chicago. So I'm going to cut and paste this and save it for later because now I have a source. Yay. So does that make sense to everybody? When I say I'm going to cut and paste it for later, I'm going to cut it and paste it for later, and then I'm going to put it in my bibliography. And when I said earlier, like if you hate this process of doing research and making your little citations, it doesn't mean anything. It means that you are going to make it through college fine. You're going to do a lot more of it in 102. And if you really despise it, it means don't go to graduate school because that's all graduate school is. Okay, so let's move on to your research questions. And I did put in the chat, if you really don't want me to discuss your research question, then let me know. I've lost the chat. So did anybody say they don't want me to? I can't find the chat. It's one of these many pages. Let me see now, chat. There it is. If you don't want me to pull up your research paper, I still can't find it. Oh. All right. Boo, boo, boo. As for everybody who's saying, I want to tell you back to the percentages of African Americans. Is it surprising to you guys that only 13% of the US is African American? Yeah, because I was once working with some kids in high school in New Orleans. They were like, yeah, 90% of America is African American. I was like, no, it is not. But it's like your worldview. Louisiana is more African American than other states. Okay, so here we go. We're going to look at, your research questions, and I'm going to comment on your research questions. So the biggest problem that students make in doing research is having too broad a topic. Your topic is too broad, your argument is too overreaching, and so it becomes unmanageable. So don't be afraid of writing a small research question and answering it because you'll have plenty to say. The reasons that I think some of you go too big is because you think, oh, I won't have enough to say and this will help my page count. And yeah, but you won't really make your point or your argument. So sexual abuse towards children and adolescents is a global issue, and these children deserve more awareness. Okay, so that is again huge because she's talking about the entire world. So Brianna, I'm going to really encourage you to bring it on home. Well, how about sexual abuse towards America? Still a big country. Do you guys know are we first, second, third, fourth, fifth in size in the whole world? What are the biggest countries by population? What's the biggest country by population? Am I getting answers in chat? So the biggest population is China, then India, and then we're the third. So we're a huge country. Even to say that you're just going to look at child abuse in the United States, it's the third biggest country in the world. So I'm going to say, as much as you can, narrow that topic to look at you could look at it in Louisiana. That's maybe a little smaller, but at least you have the background. So it's not bad that you started with that question, but you really have to narrow it down because you're only writing 5 pages. You can't talk about sexual abuse in the entire world in 5 pages because that's a lot. And you might want to say, because it's been in the news lately, why is it on the upswing in America? Is there less or more lately? Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, students should be placed in school by their academic ability rather than their age because it can give students a more beneficial environment and even cause them to be held back in their studies. So I'm going to say that is appropriately narrow, but she could narrow. So when I'm talking about broad and narrow, what do I mean? How could she narrow this even more? It's not inappropriately broad, but there's a way to make it even like more pointed. How could she make this a even more particular question? Bria, what do you think I'm getting at here?
Maybe like a certain age.
Totally. Kindergarten. You can write 5 pages on kindergarten. First grade, you could really narrow it down to elementary school, but you could even go smaller. I have a feeling that why did I bring up kindergarten? It's just because that's when the tracking sort of begins. How old are you supposed to be in kindergarten?
5.
Yeah, so I would just say always try to think narrower, narrower, narrower. Okay, let's see what's next. And again, the reason why I often encourage you to say upload, my argument is elephants should not be able to live in zoos. Okay, that's narrow.
I'm sorry, I forgot to explain it. It only said 1 or 2 sentences, so I didn't explain.
You're fine. Elephants shouldn't live in zoos. That's pretty narrow. I have a feeling that you're going to get to the point and explain to us why they shouldn't. So there's not a lot to say. And I'm sure there's evidence to explain why elephants should not live in zoos. I mean, personal experience, have you ever gone to the zoo and seen the elephant just swaying back and forth or banging its head on it's pathetic and sad. Okay, Shamira has a long argument. My argument is that prisoners are still people. Okay, so Shamira, of course they are. Who says they aren't? I feel like, yes, some of them are offensive criminals, but they still should be treated with respect. Okay, so that would be more narrow. While they're doing their sentence, the prison should provide them with programs. That's another topic. Programs can help them and prevent them from doing something that landed them in prison to begin with. To conclude, I truly believe all prisoners should have a shot at a second chance. So you have a lot going on here. What's one provable point from your paragraph, Shamira?
What you mean?
Okay, so prisoners are humans. We're not talking about elephants in zoos. So let's just forget about that first part. I feel like, yes, there are some offensive criminals, but they should still be treated with respect. Yes, people are offensive. Some of you might just be sitting there going, Dr. White is offensive. Yep, you should still treat me with respect, as I try to treat you with respect. So that part is really neither here nor there. While they're doing their sentence, the prison should provide them with programs. Okay, so are there prisons where there are no programs?
I don't know, but like they're not really doing nothing for people in jail. Like they're not helping them to like get better for when they get out, like stuff that benefit them. They just, oh, you have outside time, you got this, you got that, but like that's not helping them.
Okay, so let's get jail out of the picture, because do you guys know the difference between jail and prison?
They're not the same, but like you know what I
Prison is
mean.
just, yeah, prison is where you pay your debt to society, theoretically. Jail is just a holding tank on the way to prison, or you get out of jail. Okay, so prisons. So why don't you look at this? What I'm getting at, because I don't want to run out of time today, and I want to go through everybody's questions, although there's something else I also wanted to do today, but I don't think we're gonna have time. Why don't you just look at like what are programs that are successful in prisons that help remediate people? Like something like that. What is a successful prison program? And your topic is hard because some people don't believe, Americans generally do not believe that prisons are supposed to make people better. They believe that prisons are supposed to punish people. I'm not saying I believe this, but that is the system that we live in, albeit problematic. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that, but that's literally the whole point of prison, is for them to like help them get better. Like,
That's not, nope, that is not the whole point of prison. I agree
it's
with
pretty
you.
much like if you look up prison reform, that's what it's gonna say. It's gonna say like
Prison
it's
reform.
like,
Yes, reform. So what are they reforming? A system that says what? In our system, prison is punishment. Not all countries work this way. In Norway, you can only get locked up for 27 years. That's the max, never more. And they try to help people get better. So we have a very punitive system. In fact, we have a system that is, again, I'm not a fan of Trump, but not Trump, it was Bush. Bush tried to reform prisons and strangely did. And Trump also, under Trump, the prisons have gotten less punitive. We live in a state, in a country that is highly incarcerated. So Shamira, I'm gonna ask you to just narrow it down to like, what is a good prison reform program? What is one that works? Can you do that?
okay.
You don't have to. You sound so hesitant. Like, what do you want to argue?
I don't know. I'll probably just change my topic.
No, don't change your topic. It's literally, so this is the other thing I wanted to do today. So the other thing is I was going to try to pack a lot into class today, but I don't think we're going to have time. I do not want you to change your topic because I'm literally giving you a reading on prison, coincidentally. I didn't know that that was your topic. So it's a topic that's important. It's a topic that you can argue. So I guess I'm going to assign this for Wednesday, but it's a good topic. Why do you want to change it? Just because I'm saying that you can't argue in the United States that we have a reform system? Is that why you're like, I'm not going to do that topic?
Kind of.
Yeah, well, so I want you to do the topic. It's an important topic. I'm giving you a reading coincidentally on prisons, but it's just like, sadly, that is the way the system works, is that America believes in a punishment system, not a reform and make rehabilitation. You can argue rehabilitation is better. I personally think it is better. But you have to start with the fact that we have a system that is punishing, not rehabilitating. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, do not start with a new topic also because it's too late. So that is your reading for tomorrow. I'm sorry, on Wednesday, and let's go to some more research topics. I'm just trying to guide you to an answerable question, not trying to make you change your topic. And I think that Moodle has tuned out, so let's move on. And so this is also, okay, nothing there. You did it or you didn't do it. So if you uploaded something, it's participation and you get 100%. If you didn't upload anything, then you don't. So let's see what Mia says while it generates the PDF. Very slow today, this computer. Here we go. Okay, Mia, my argument is about freedom of speech, the First Amendment, that it is not free to all. Although our United States Constitution tells us we have the freedom of speech in today's world, that is not true. My research paper will show evidence. I like evidence. She'll show evidence that there are regulations on our free speech. There will be certain examples in my paper that I do not want to spoil, but there are many speakers maybe who are not allowed to say as they please by restrictions of certain politically biased companies, bosses, social media, et cetera. Okay, so be as precise as you can is my advice. That is fairly narrow, but it's also fairly huge. If anybody paid attention to the Amy Coney Barrett Supreme Court nomination, she was asked, what are the 5 parts of the First Amendment? And she didn't know, which was kind of shocking because she is what's called a constitutional lawyer. So if you're a constitutional lawyer, you know the Constitution inside out and backwards. So make sure you cover that quickly in your paper, Mia, what the First Amendment is and what you are doing specifically, which is freedom of speech, because there are all these different moving parts of the First Amendment, one of which is the freedom to congregate and protest. That is part of the First Amendment. Okay, moving along. Okay, moving along. Ronnie Jackson hasn't been in class in like, you guys even know who that is? So since he's not here, I'm not gonna go through it, but yes, he's arguing, I guess, should student athletes be paid? So Zaire, did you email it to me? Moving along. Okay, let's see what Bronson has. Okay, even though most people are treated equally because of their race or descent, some may be treated differently. Americans with European descent should be treated better than Americans with African descent. As Americans, people shall deserve better in terms of respect and honor, no matter what race they belong. Whatever that happens, some stereotypes can. So you're all over the place, Bronson. You need to narrow it down. And you're arguing Americans with European descent should be treated better than Americans with African descent. So that's literally what you brought in, and you said you don't agree. So this is a little confusing. What is it that you're ultimately trying to argue?
I'm trying to argue that I'm trying to argue that if you can walk outside, Americans that are white should not be offended unless if they are treated like black people.
So Americans that are white should not be offended by what?
By not just black people, but by everybody else.
Okay, so Americans that are white should stop being so offended. That you could argue that works. Americans that are white need to be more tolerant, something like that. Okay, so Samantha, we're moving on to Samantha's, which is foster care. Why the foster care system is not doing enough for foster children. Okay, this is my argument, but I want to go into detail about how social workers and a lot of people who work for the foster care system are not doing enough to make sure that the children are being put into safe foster homes and eventually either returning to their families or being adopted. I would also argue that many of the children who age out of the foster care system end up in danger, as they do not have much help getting on their feet after. I would use my counter argument to address how some people are doing everything that they can for the foster care children, and then not everyone in the system is bad. Okay, so Samantha, I think you should just pick one part of that, which is either aging out. That could be a good, more narrow topic, or that seems kind of harsh to blame the social workers for the problem of foster children.
Most of the articles that I was reading were saying that the people who work for the foster care system, like the social workers, don't have like I don't want to say the education that they need, but they don't have like they were like saying that the social workers aren't like looking into the foster families hard enough. They're just throwing the kids in a home.
Okay, so I would just do one or the other. I mean, you can mention aging out, or you can mention whatever you choose. You could mention that foster care social workers are not properly trained professionals doing their job. That's still pretty big, but make one of those your main point. Okay. Do you have any preference on that one? Like,
No,
which,
Mom, I think your idea is good.
you can talk about both for sure. That,
Okay.
but just so that there's like a main focus that you can prove with evidence. All right, Lainey told me she emailed me. Let's see, Jaden, how the Black Lives Move. Is Jaden here today? She's not here. We're not gonna work on it. Nope. Okay. Tiffany, Alexis. Okay, my argument, my thesis is does physical or mental abuse affect the growth and development for adulthood? I support that childhood trauma and neglect can stunt growth or provide long-term mental health issues in the future. It can also lead to bad choices, inappropriate behavior, unsuccessful growth in a healthy adult. Okay, so again, I think that it's too broad. Are you talking about physical abuse and mental abuse, Alexis?
Yes.
Could you just pick one, or do you feel like they're so enmeshed that you can't pick one over the other?
Yeah, they kind of are enmeshed because physical abuse could, lead to mental problems as well as plain mental or verbal abuse.
Okay, so then can stunt growth. So when I read that, I think of a physical body growing. Are you talking about when there's physical and mental abuse? You're talking, I think, more about just psychological
growth. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe just the stunt growth sort of refers to like somebody not
growing.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so basically, so here's my fear with yours. It's that it's a little bit of not answering the question. Basically, we know that childhood abuse creates long-term mental anguish in people, right? Like no one's going to argue with that. No one's going to say, yeah, if you lock a child in a room and deprive him of food and love, he's going to turn out okay. Everyone's going to say, yep, that's probably the recipe for creating a very upset adult. So maybe if you could just be more narrow in pinpointing what those specific behaviors are that are mentally unhealthy, something like that. Do you see what I mean?
Can I like revise it and send it to you to check?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
All right. And we're getting down to the end here in the end of class. So oops, go back. So there's just a couple more. So just to remind you guys, we're doing the peer review on the 23rd, which is Friday. So you will need to come to class with a paper. So very different from the podcast where you needed to come to class with some listenable file. If you're in class on Friday, you either have to have the paper written, and I'm going to check it for all of you. Did you write a paper? And if you didn't, if you do not have that paper, then I'm going to say you can't do the peer review, because how are you going to work with a partner when you don't have a paper to share with them? And I'll explain that more on Wednesday. Okay, I want my research project to address how female athletes are treated differently than male athletes, to show how their lives revolve around peer pressure of getting the right body by excessive amounts of exercise and healthy diets. Not only the peer pressure, but the clothing that they must wear. I want the thoughts of female athletes in my paper to show how they feel about the unrealistic views that are placed on them. Okay, sounds like you know what you want to do, Naya. So just to narrow it down, you are talking about female athletes and the peer pressure, or are you talking about female athletes and the pressure that comes from coaches or professional athletic membership? Well, who are peers? Who are your peers? Oh, is Naya here? Naya's not here. Sorry, guys. Oh, you are here? Yes, you're here.
Yeah.
So who's a peer?
The people that's around them, like their coaches.
So coaches really are not their
teammates.
peers. Why are coaches not a peer? Coaches are not if you're an athlete, your coach isn't your peer. A peer is somebody in the same age group and the same mode of doing whatever you're doing. So my peers are professors like me. Your peers are students. If you're an athlete, your coach is almost your supervisor. Zaire, since you're an athlete, how would you describe the coach-athlete relationship? Are coaches the boss? They're not your friend. Turn your mic on, sweetie. I know you're saying something, but we can't hear you. She's gonna go and chat. So I'm asking Zaire.
Hello.
She's an
Can you
athlete.
hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
I was saying, like, your coaches are most definitely not your friend. They're your superior. So yeah.
So just, you need to narrow that down a tiny bit. Like, who is putting pressure on female athletes? If it's their peers, it's the other athletes who are just like them. And they might be like, ballet dancers are famous for looking at each other's bodies and being judgy, and they're kind of athletes. So does that make sense, Naya?
Yeah.
Okay, just a little more narrow. Everybody, it's just, I'm never gonna say to you guys, you know what, you could be broader. So does that, I know you don't like to revise this, but it'll help you along the way if you have a very clear thesis. All right, so what we're gonna do on Wednesday is you should read this piece of literature that is an excerpt from a book. So the book is called The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. What does that mean to be colorblind? The word popped up a lot. Oh, we're out of time. Colorblind means that you say, I don't believe in race and I don't see it. I treat everybody the same. And the example that popped up a lot of colorblindness was saying, look, President Obama is African-American. He made it to the highest post of the land. Race no longer matters. It's not an issue. That's what being colorblind is. So please read this. It's just a little piece of this book. So the source is this big title. The author is Michelle Alexander. And this is just an excerpt, meaning a little piece of writing from this book. And then bring in what her argument is. I want you to be able to say what this person's argument is. Okay? Very simple little exercise. Do you want me to send it to you in an email? Or can you find it in Moodle yourself?
Yeah.
Send it? Okay. All right. Any questions? Zaire?
Can I stay after for help with my thesis? It's only gonna take like 2 minutes.
Sure, yeah. If you don't have any questions and you want to leave, feel free to leave. And I'll be here. Go ahead, Zaire.
I want to take a different approach because I feel like most people think that China's one-child policy was like was bad, but I kind of wanted to like steer it and say it was beneficial to the people. So can that like be my thesis statement? Can I just start off
I
saying
love it when people change their thesis. Yeah, that's a good, I mean, there was a reason, the Chinese are not idiots. There's a reason that they said only one child. It was a horrible policy for girls. They killed girls. The one child policy, I saw the movie that you saw, it was very horrible, but for mothers, but it's not like a country like China doesn't know what the F it's doing. It does, it's a
Yeah.
policy.
So I want to like argue like the pros of it.
Yeah, totally. Yep. I really
Like-
love when students like say, well, I can see both sides. I'm gonna take the side that isn't the first thing, because of course, like it's cruel, like to tell
Yeah, like
people
it's bad, but like it has its advantages, or else they wouldn't have done it in the first place.
Miss White,
Okay,
Dr.
'cause-
White,
yes, Bronson, and then I saw that you raised your hand, Bria. I got you.
is it a will a reading be for a grade?
On Wednesday,
Yes, ma'am.
you're giving me ideas, Bronson. Assume that it should be for a grade. Don't worry about it though. Just read the piece of writing. You'll be fine. Bria,
Okay.
okay, Bria, can you
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You
Thank
said-
you, ma'am.
So you said Friday we have to come in with like a rough draft? Okay,
Yes.
I'm just making sure.
Yes, correct. Anybody else who's here? Jordan, you wanted to talk?
Yes, ma'am. I had a question. So for my annotated bibliography, I found two of the sources on there, and I guess like I'm like confused about what's an academic source, because besides the ones that I put, I couldn't find any other ones on there, so I'm not sure what to
Okay.
do now.
Did I already grade your annotated bibliography or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does anybody else want to talk to me? Because I would like to look at Jordan's and look at the grade and stuff. And so I don't want to do that with everybody else. Okay, let me talk to Tiffany really quickly. Tiffany, what you got? You're muted, Tiffany. Still can't hear you. I don't know if Tiffany can hear me. You can? Okay, can you unmute? Or go to chat maybe? I'll go to chat. Chat. Where's chat? You know what I'm gonna do actually with you, Jordan? Do you have any time at, say, like 1:30?
I have work from 11:30 until 4, but then I'm not doing anything after that. But then tomorrow, I don't have class until 12.
Okay, how about tomorrow at 10? I'll set up a Zoom and we can talk about it.
Okay, how do you want me to get the link? Are you gonna email it to
I'll
me?
invite you and then you'll get the link. Then you have to accept the invitation. So Tuesday at 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, you want to put it in chat, Tiffany? Okay. Oh, okay. Here, can I give you a thesis? Did homophobia rise in the Trump years? Because homophobia was, it was on the down, like people, your generation generally was like, I don't care what people do with their bodies anymore. It's fine if they want to sleep with whoever. But then, we took a swing to the right. And so like racism and hate crimes, they went up. And you could look at that. Did homophobia and hate crimes go up? Does that work for you? Oh, wait, Tiffany, I just sent that to Lainey. I meant to send it. Lainey, are you here? I did not meant to send that to you. I meant to send it to Tiffany.
I'm here.
Lainey, did you want to talk about something too?
So I had closed my laptop thinking it would just end it, but it didn't. So.
Oh, okay. I have to go anyway. So, Tiffany, can you do that? Just shake your head. Yes. Okay. If you need to talk about it more, send me an email. And I need to actually end this meeting because I've got to get to another class. Ebony, did you
Miss
vote?
White?
Yes.
I didn't know that the due date was 7 a.m. I thought it was 7 p.m.
Okay.
So I didn't turn it in. Can I turn it in on email?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. No problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.